Cloak and Dagger. Tyrone Johnson and Tandy Bowen meet in New York City as runaways. Tyrone is the son of Otis and Adina Johnson, and Tandy is the daughter of Melissa Bowen. Tyrone is a 17-year-old boy from Boston, Massachusetts, with a debilitating stutter. He ran away to New York City when his speech impediment prevented him from stopping his friend from being shot by the police, who mistakenly believed he had just robbed a store. Tandy is a 16-year-old girl from a privileged upbringing, born in Shaker Heights, Ohio, who ran away because her multi-millionaire supermodel mother was too busy with her career and social life to spend any time with her daughter. When they meet, Tyrone considers stealing Tandy's purse, but before he can, a thief steals it, and Tyrone retrieves it for her. Afterwards, they have dinner and quickly become friends. When the naive Tandy accepts an offer of shelter from some strange men, the wary Tyrone goes along to protect her. The two teenagers are soon forcibly delivered to criminal chemist Simon Marshall, who's developing a new synthetic heroin for Silvermane and the Magia, testing it on runaway teens with fatal results. Johnson and Bowen somehow survive injections of the drug, and they flee. During their escape, the drug turns them into superpowered beings. Tyrone finds himself engulfed in darkness and seized by a strange hunger that eases in the presence of Tandy, who now glows with a brilliant light. Trying to hide his newly shadowy appearance in a makeshift cloak, Tyrone absorbs Marshall's thugs into his darkness, while Tandy strikes them down with daggers of light. The two teenagers dub themselves Cloak and Dagger, declaring war on drug crime and helping runaway children. They are aided by local priest Father Delgado and Detective Bridget O'Reilly. During Cloak and Dagger's travels around the world, Dagger is briefly reunited with her father, Nathan Tyler, who has become a type of guru in India. He develops an ability to manipulate his personal light like Tandy, but uses it as a form of control over others to increase his own power, seemingly killing Tyrone when he interferes with his plans. Cloak and Dagger oppose him, and he flings himself into Cloak's portal. Later, it is revealed that during this time, Despair has been manipulating these events from behind the scenes. Cloak and Dagger became vigilantes and hunted and killed Simon Marshall and his drug-dealing henchmen responsible for activating their powers. They first encountered Spider-Man during these events. They next murdered Silvermane in revenge and battled his reanimated cyborg form. They teamed up with Spider-Man to thwart the Punisher's murder attempt on the Kingpin. When their activities became too damaging for the illegal drug trade, some dealers kidnapped members of the New Mutants and tried to control them by injecting them with a drug similar to that which gave Cloak and Dagger their powers. For a time, they lost their powers to the heroes Sunspot and Wolfsbane, but they cooperated in retrieving them when it was learned the others were not handling it well. Cloak and Dagger saved them with Spider-Man's help, but turned down an offer to join the X-Men's School for Gifted Youngsters. They then battled Silvermane and the Answer. Kingpin wanted Dagger to help heal his wife, but Dagger refused to help him. They befriended the superpowered preteens known as the Power Pack, and twice aided the New Mutants, junior trainees of the X-Men. The duo eventually learned that they were mutants themselves, which is the reason they were the only test subjects to survive the administration of the drug in the first place. Though they tend to target ordinary street criminals, they have faced such diverse foes as Doctor Doom, the Beyonder, Vermin, the Disciplinarian, the Warlord of Campuchia, Mephisto, Thanos, Firebrand, and the Assembly of Evil. They encountered the Beyonder during Secret Wars 2. They also encountered Bridget O'Reilly, who was transformed into Mayhem. They next encountered Doctor Doom in Latveria. Alongside Doctor Strange, they battled Ecstasy. They were used in Nightmare's plot to defeat Doctor Strange. They then battled Master Jib and Night and Day, and then they encountered the Power Pack again. Dagger was later possessed by Night and battled X-Factor and lost her sight temporarily. Cloak and Dagger battled Hydro Man, the Second Jester, the Hulk Android, Rock, and Fenris alongside the Avengers. Dagger later regained her sight and helped defeat Mr. Jib. Cloak later unknowingly met his twin sister. The duo then battled Despair, learning that he gave them their dark form and light form, which had been pieces of his soul, which interfered with their natural mutations. Dagger was one of 7 brides selected for the Serpent God set in the Atlantis Attacks crossover storyline, the other 6 being Jean Grey, the Invisible Woman, Andromeda, She-Hulk, Storm, and the Scarlet Witch. Cloak and Dagger played a small part in the Infinity Gauntlet saga, when Thanos used the power of the Infinity Gauntlet to sacrifice half of the population of the universe to death. Dagger was among the superheroes that vanished, and Cloak answered the summons of Adam Warlock to join a task force of the remaining superheroes to fight Thanos. During the assault on Thanos by the assembled team, Cloak managed to pull Thanos into the Dark Force dimension, but was killed when Thanos released a massive amount of energy from within him. All that was left were pieces of his cloak. His life was restored after most of the events were undone by Nebula after she seized the Infinity Gauntlet. The two tended to live in churches, supported by friends and priests. Cloak has run away many times, not understanding that Dagger is fully willing to use her light power to satisfy his darkness. Cloak and Dagger are devoted to each other, but Dagger often wants more from life. While on an international case, Tandy performed with Euro Cirque as Lady Light and shared a romance with a supposed stowaway on a drug boat. Eventually he was exposed as a criminal, but ultimately sacrificed himself to save Dagger. Tandy found new friends in the New Warriors, who teamed with Cloak, Dagger, and other heroes to defeat the shadow lunatic Darkling. She also joined the team for a brief period, leading to further tension with Cloak. During the Maximum Carnage storyline, Cloak and Dagger teamed with Spider-Man, Captain America, Black Cat, Nightwatch, Iron Fist, Deathlock, Morbius, Venom, and Firestar to halt a murderous supervillain rampage led by the serial killer Carnage. Dagger was supposedly killed by Shriek, Carnage's wife, while saving an injured Spider-Man, but was later revealed to be severely wounded and recuperating within Cloak's shroud, and was the key instrument in breaking up the Carnage family. After Tyrone leaves Tandy's side, he is no longer able to control his hunger and consumes any and every lawbreaker, no matter how small the offense. While searching for him in churches, she meets the Black Widow, who she teams up with to prevent a church from being robbed. Daredevil later appears, and both assist him on a mission he received from the Punisher. Dagger becomes a member of the now-defunct Marvel Knights team, partnering up with many different heroes, including Moon Knight, Luke Cage, and Shang-Chi. During her time with the Knights, Dagger developed a deep friendship with the Black Widow. Natasha brings Tandy to the guidance of Doctor Strange in the hopes of finding a crazed Tyrone. The Marvel Knights and Doctor Strange locate and battle an enhanced and deranged Cloak, during which most of the group are absorbed into his cape. Doctor Strange reveals that Cloak has become possessed by Nightmare. Tandy manages to overpower and absorb Tyrone's cloak powers, freeing everyone from his cape. For some time after, the Black Widow lets Ty and Tandy live in her apartment, which was later attacked by a homicidal life model decoy of Nick Fury. Though, at this point, he was a normal human. Tyrone managed to defeat the robot. Cloak and Dagger make their return in Runaways, in which Tyrone appears repowered and stable. At one stage, the LAPD recruited the team to locate the Runaways. During their initial encounter, Dagger quickly knocked out Nico Minoru with her light, and Cloak easily absorbed Chase Stein, Carolina Dean, Alex Wilder, and Nico. Gertrude Yorks was able to halt Dagger's light attacks with her dinosaur old lace, as Dagger's light had no effect on animals, and Molly Hayes managed to pull Cloak's cloak from his body, severing his connection to the Dark Force dimension. This caused a ceasefire, during which time Gertrude and Molly explained to Cloak and Dagger that the LAPD were actually corrupt and under the control of the Runaways' supervillain parents, the Pride. Cloak managed to reconnect to his cloak and rescue the Runaways he had absorbed, and he and Dagger both promised to return to New York and bring back the Avengers to stop the Pride and rescue the Runaways. However, there was a traitor in the Runaways, Alex. He instead contacted the LAPD, which had the Pride erase Tandy's and Tyrone's actual memories of the group, thus preventing them from helping the Runaways. Tyrone was later impersonated by Reginald Mantz, who was using mutant growth hormone to replicate Cloak's powers. Mantz stalked and attacked Dagger, leaving her hospitalized. After a fight with the New Avengers led to him sustaining a blow to the head, Cloak regained his memories and requested the Runaways' assistance in clearing his name, as he had been framed for attacking Dagger. Cloak appealed to the fact that they all shared bonds in being Runaways, and explains the reason he and Dagger never helped them as he planned. They agreed to help, and successfully helped Cloak apprehend his impostor, the delusional orderly Reginald Mantz, who believed that he and Tandy were in a relationship. Later, during the Civil War storyline, Cloak and Dagger are revealed to be members of Captain America's faction of superheroes who oppose the Superhuman Registration Act. Cloak is shot by S.H.I.E.L.D. tranquilizers whilst teleporting Captain America and the rebel faction to a chemical plant where they believed a catastrophic accident has taken place. It turns out to be a trap set by Iron Man, waiting with the pro-registration faction. Dagger is hit with a lightning attack by a clone of Thor. It is then revealed that the pair were captured during a mission in Queens and jailed in the Negative Zone prison. They are freed by the shapeshifter Hulkling, who was disguised as the pro-registration Hank Pym, which leads to the climactic battle between the two sides, both of which Cloak teleports to Times Square, New York. During the secret invasion, Luke Cage called Cloak, who drops the New Avengers at the top of Stark Tower to steal one of Tony Stark's Quinjets. When Cage offers to take him with them to find the downed Skrull ship, Cloak refuses and vanishes. Later, Norman Osborn tracks down Tandy and Tyrone in Colombia, where they're burning down drug fields. He approaches them to join his new team of X-Men, initially against it as they knew of all Osborn's past, and they don't consider themselves mutants per se. Osborn tells them that they can take their war on drugs to a global scale, as well as having no trouble with the police anymore. Dagger agrees to the deal for them both, but Cloak remains hesitant. Cloak and Dagger are later recruited into the Dark X-Men by Norman Osborn, after Emma Frost's and Namor's betrayal of the team. Emma offers them the opportunity to join the real X-Men and their exodus from the USA, to which both instantly agree. During their time with the X-Men, Cloak becomes involved with Wolverine's plan to kill Romulus, along with Bruce Banner and Scar. Tandy is kidnapped, and Romulus orders her to be beaten. Wolverine and Cloak manage to save her, and Wolverine kills her kidnapper, much to her chagrin. However, she tells Tyrone to continue helping Wolverine, as he needs this help. Aiding Wolverine, Cloak uses his power to trap Romulus in the Dark Force dimension. However, Romulus later escapes and fights with both Wolverine and Cloak. After doing tests on Dagger, Dr. Nemesis confirms that they are definitely not mutants, disappointing her as she enjoyed being on the team. It is revealed later that Tyrone was cheating on her with a girl from his old neighborhood, Tia. Eventually, Tia reveals that she knows his secret identity as Cloak and has him kidnapped, torturing him to keep him from using his powers. Dagger becomes worried after he doesn't return home. A few days go by and she manages to track him down. With the help of X-Men, Anole, and Dr. Nemesis, she fights off his captors, whereupon Tia reveals that she has powers as well, and has been brainwashed to hate them. Tia manages to escape the fight, and Tandy and Tyrone decide to leave Utopia and the X-Men and return to New York to work on rekindling their relationship. They are featured in the Spider-Man storyline Spider Island as being homeless, as they had just lost their home in New York because it wasn't up to code. They then were confronted by the Avengers, who informed them about the present spider problem at hand. It also revealed that Dagger is attending college classes as an attempt to normalize her life. Cloak has contradicting views, as he acknowledges them as special. After Mr. Negative hears of a prophecy that he is destined to be killed by Dagger, he kidnaps her and corrupts her with his negative touch. Her powers are changed, now working through the Dark Force. Similar to Cloak, she gets the hunger for light and starts dying from the lack of it. Cloak pleads with Mr. Negative to give him the touch. He surprisingly agrees, altering Cloak's abilities to be powered by light. Cloak feeds Dagger his light, causing an explosion. In the aftermath, it is revealed that Dagger now has Cloak's original powers, and Cloak has Dagger's. This change in powers recalls the reference to Despair's influence on their life, as according to him in the final issue of their original series, these were the power sets that they were always originally meant to have, but Despair interfered, resulting in Cloak and Dagger having reversed power sets and considered weaker than what they would have been had Despair not gotten involved in their lives. Following the Secret Wars storyline as part of the all-new, all-different Marvel event, Cloak and Dagger have returned, still using the other's powers, but are now evil due to the corruptive influence of Mr. Negative. Although Martin Lee was arrested at some point, Cloak and Dagger have been using shade patches, which dose them with a drug that stimulates the effects of Mr. Negative's touch, ensuring that their criminal personas will remain loyal to him, breaking him out to the prison ship where Lee was being kept, and restoring him to Mr. Negative to lead an assault on Parker Industries in Japan. Although Peter is able to escape being corrupted by Mr. Negative, thanks to Negative prior corruption of Spider-Man, Cloak and Dagger manage to help Negative escape, when Peter tracks him to his Hong Kong headquarters by secretly placing a spider tracer on Cloak. Using this tracer, Peter is able to inject Cloak with a cure for Shade that he later uses to cure Dagger, apparently restoring their original powers. Although Mr. Negative has escaped, Cloak and Dagger decide to remain in Hong Kong to guard it from any future attacks. Tyrone Johnson aka Cloak, acquired Despair's dark form, which gave him the ability to create an aperture into the Dark Force dimension and to dispatch people into the dimension. He also gained the abilities of intangibility and the teleportation of himself and others through the Dark Force dimension. People enveloped by Cloak's darkness feel numbing cold and experience terrifying vision of their own greatest fears and nightmares. Prolonged exposure to the darkness can drive people insane. Cloak can teleport by entering the Dark Force dimension, moving a short distance within it, and emerging back on Earth a great distance from its point of origin. A span of miles on Earth can be traversed in only a few steps via shortcuts through the Dark Force. As Cloak, Tyrone is usually intangible, though he can solidify through an act of will or by absorbing enough light to saturate his form temporarily. Cloak feels a constant hunger, which can only be assuaged by feeding either on light projected by Dagger or on light consumed from Victor's dispatched to the dimension of darkness. He later develops better control over his hunger. In addition, he can mentally see the fears of certain people he touches. Tandy Bowen, aka Dagger, has the ability to create a multitude of light daggers from the light force, which travel wherever she wills them, that drain living beings of vitality when struck. Her light daggers also have the capacity to cure certain persons of drug addictions and can alleviate Cloak's hunger for light, simultaneously allowing her to avoid becoming overcharged. She can even mentally see the hopes of certain people by touching them. Cloak and Dagger both have moderate experience at street fighting, and Dagger's combat techniques utilize her light force powers and ballet dance training, as well as her sense of spatial relations, which had been heightened by her temporary blindness. Cloak and Dagger were considered latent mutants in early appearances, whose powers were activated when they were injected with the experimental illegal drug. In later years, they were listed as mutates, meaning that their powers were derived from an external mutagenic source. This designation was used for them in the Civil War Battle Damage Report. Some mutants, such as Sunfire, Polaris, and Thunderbird, have also required external stimuli to awaken their latent powers. In the Age of Apocalypse storyline, Cloak and Dagger are members of the Sinister Six, who were brainwashed into fighting the X-Men. They were apparently killed in battle. In House of M, Cloak appears as a member of the underground human resistance, led by Luke Cage. No mention of Dagger's whereabouts are ever made. The League of Losers. Dagger features in an arc of Marvel's Team Up, featuring a group of C-list heroes dubbed the League of Losers, including Darkhawk, Sleepwalker, Gravity, X-23, and Terror. They go to the future to prevent the villain Cronok from stealing Reed Richards' time machine. Cronok having come to the present and already having killed all of Marvel's major heroes. In Marvel Zombies, Cloak and Dagger, both zombified, are seen in a narrow alley devouring a hapless victim. In the Ultimate Fantastic Four issue 23, Cloak is seen as one of the dozens of zombified heroes who have gathered together to hunt down and eat the last 4 people known and affected by the virus. In the parody series Spider-Ham, the duo are parodied as Croak and Badger, a frog and a badger. In the Ultimate Marvel Universe, a teenager named Tandy Bowen makes a cameo appearance as a teenager running for and eventually succeeding in becoming school president. She then appears as an anti-mutant who calls an anti-mutant task force to arrest Kitty Pryde. 2 women dressed as Cloak and Dagger are both in handcuffs for an unknown offense when Ronin stumbles into a police station to provide evidence against the Kingpin. The Ultimate Marvel versions of Cloak and Dagger officially debut during a battle against Bombshell. A series of flashbacks reveal that the 2 were high school sweethearts who were critically injured in a car accident while on the way to their senior prom. Roxxon's brain trust had the two teens declared legally dead and used as test subjects in an experiment involving dark matter. This resulted in Tandy and Ty gaining their superpowers. Eventually, Cloak and Dagger, as well as Bombshell, assist Spider-Man and Spider-Woman in fighting Roxxon's brain trust, as well as confronting Philip R. Roxxon. The two later joined the Young Ultimates. They, along with their team, as well as the Ultimate Universe in general, were destroyed during the events of Secret Wars. They all supposedly came back afterwards. In the 2000 miniseries Universe X, Ty Johnson is dead, but his cloak is still carried by Dagger. Mar-Vell is given the cloak by Dagger and uses it as a teleportation device and a gateway to the realm of the dead. In the Battle World Runaways, Cloak and Dagger are similar to what happened in Spider Island, only Tandy is Cloak instead of Dagger, and Tyrone is Dagger instead of Cloak. This alternate version of Cloak and Dagger are revealed to be siblings, even when people mistake them to be a romantic couple. This is the current history of Cloak and Dagger so far. I'm assuming with the television series, which may have been cancelled, but they have due to feature in an episode of The Runaways. Hopefully this will mean that there are more stories to be told from Tyrone and Tandy.